Brother, how you keeping, man? For folks who are watching this whole interview on Rudy Blair Entertainment Media, rudyblairmedia.com. I was actually hoping to do this interview earlier, but you're a busy man today, man. What was going on today?
It's nonstop. It's nonstop. So I was doing a presentation virtually in Markham. It's my third time at that school in less than a year. So it feels like I'm coming back there, but it's always weird when you're looking at the webcam and not seeing students' faces. So as much as it's familiar, in a way it's not. So I can't wait to get back to being in person, but
Yeah,
it's a
yeah,
blessing to be able to do it.
you're on tour right now, man.
It's a nonstop tour. I'm not leaving my studio. Um, so I love it in the sense I can do more shows per se. Like some days I'm doing three different schools, whereas before I'd have to pack up everything, get to another school in the afternoon. But now I can fit them in. So it's really cool that everybody wants to talk about Black history. And right now it's January. It's not Black History Month, but you know what we say, Black Canadian 365.
Yeah.
So it's every day, and it's cool that more educators and just more people in general are recognizing that.
Let's go back to the beginning because we should explain what exactly is the tour and how did this come about in the first place?
Black Canadian 365. So I've been doing presentations now in schools for 20 years. And I remember when I started doing presentations, it was about goal setting and then anti-bullying. But when February came around, I was asked to speak about Black history. And for so many years, I'd say up to about 2015, 16, maybe, I just noticed a trend where it's every time I went to a school, they would say, yeah, let's talk about Black history, Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks. And those would be the only posters I'd see up. And when I ask kids, what do you know about Black history? Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King. So I focused on Black Canadian history, especially when I realized people didn't know very much at all about Viola Desmond or other facts in Black history. So last year I branded it 365, and I think there was a real demand for it as well with everything that happened in the world with Black Lives Matter and George Floyd and so much. So I'm bringing it back this year. I booked even more gigs than ever before, and visiting schools, 1 hour presentation combining hip hop and speaking, talking about Black history.
What are the reaction from the kids, whether they're black or not black? What's the reaction when they hear about these stories? Because I know, growing up, because I'm like 100 years older than you, of course. Um, Growing up, there was no such thing as Black History Month, and the only time that I got any teachings of Black History Month was either from my own family,
Mhm.
my family's friends, elders,
Yep.
or documentaries that my dad would get me to watch on television. That was it.
Yeah, and I love those documentaries and watching them. I just watched Harriet the other night. It's on Netflix now, so that's an easy and accessible way for people to become familiar with Black history by watching a movie like that. But for me, it's crazy to think that Black history in Canada was only recognized in 1995. So for kids, they're like they can't even conceive 1995 because they were born in the 2000s. But I'm old like you, so I know that 1995 wasn't long ago. And so when I tell that story about Jean Augustine, the first Black female member of Parliament who brought this to the House of Commons, and when it was passed 305-0. And so it's little things like that that I think are always significant, because when you see that something's 100%, when everybody agrees, it's not like, especially with politics, it's so divisive. But for everybody to agree, you recognize that it took a leader to stand up and do it. So I think that's one thing. And there's so many just good stories is the other. Like when I talk about Willie O'Ree being the first Black hockey player in the NHL, just honored this week by the Boston Bruins. It's amazing, not just that he was the first Black hockey player in the National Hockey League, but a puck hit his right eye. He lost 95% of his vision. And so, I mean, I have trouble skating by itself, let alone playing hockey, but to make it to the NHL with less than your vision, just with one eye, is amazing. And, I know you're a wrestling fan, so I always love when I talk about Nova Scotia, but I say how I have something in common with somebody. His father's a Black Canadian and Nova Scotian, same as me. We're both entertainers. and our first names are Duane. Of course, he happens to be the highest paid man in Hollywood. But when I show that slide of The Rock, I just watch kids' mouths drop, and teachers as well, because a lot of people, everybody knows The Rock, but people assume he's American because he's kind of always hyped up his mother's side and the Hawaiian background. But then even to take it a step further, his last name isn't Johnson. And I think that's a cool fact too. His dad took that name as a wrestler wanting to honor um, the boxer Rocky Marciano, undefeated, and Jack Johnson, the first black heavyweight. So you start seeing those things involved too. And those are just cool stories.
You know, I can only imagine. You kind of mentioned it too. The light that the folks see. What do you personally get from this too when you are putting out this so important information to these kids that you know that what you say to them, they're going to translate those stories to their family, and when they get older, to their children, and so forth and so on and so on. Like you are creating this, if I can say this train, this tunnel that they're all going to travel down.
I think it's really cool and important for kids to have that personal connection to Black history. And so when we only focus on America, and so much of our culture, especially when I was growing up in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, is so Americanized. And so
Yes.
just as an example of that, nowadays, when I tell kids about wanting to be a rapper and how people would say when I was growing up, like, you can't be a rapper, you're from Canada. And so many times I said that, everybody would just laugh. And teachers sometimes chuckle now, but most of the time it's students saying, like, what are you talking about? There's Drake. And so now we have kind of that national pride that
Mm-hmm.
Drake has had this huge success. But as a Canadian, it's cool that we don't just have to look to our heroes being in the United States. And for me, it's important because I didn't know how to take that question, Rudy. Like when I moved to Toronto and I went to university and people said, where are you from? I couldn't say Barbados because my great great grandparents came from St. Vincent. That didn't make sense. So I love being able to just tell kids there is Canadian history. We have been here and there's something to be proud of here in Canada.
Absolutely agree with you. You know, it's kind of funny because I actually picked up a Malcolm X shirt yesterday,
Mm,
and when I bought it, it's funny because what we just talked about, I thought to myself, and I actually was going to wear it today, and I thought, no, let me hold off because I was like, I don't have any Canadian
mm.
hero shirts to wear. I don't even know where I could find those shirts. Sure, you can find shirts of entertainers, but I'm
Mm.
talking about in other segments. You know, I feel like we lose track on that because I think a lot of Canadians would love to be able to showcase that on their chest, shirts and things like that.
Well, it's funny you mentioned because if you go to blackcanadian365.com, you can always find the Black Canadian shirts and hats. And I will say it was interesting last year when I came out with it because I had some people that aren't Black reach out to me personally and say, is it okay for me to buy these and to wear these? And I said, yeah. And um, the guy who designed it came out with some pictures of white people wearing the Black Canadian shirt. But I was also disappointed that I had a few people say, like, that's not right. And I really believe that it is okay. It is
Of course it
inclusive.
is.
And I think we need more allies. And I think that's what came out of a lot of things that happened in the last year and a half is that more people realize that these are issues that aren't just 50 years ago or 100 years ago, that they're happening now. So I think it's important for everyone to celebrate Black history and represent it. It doesn't have to be wearing my stuff, but I mean, on that Malcolm X tip that you're saying, I remember in the 90s, my Malcolm X hat was everything.
Yes.
Everybody was wearing the X hats and learning about Malcolm X. And I think that was a great thing because I mean, just reading that book as a teenager was a game changer for me. It just taught me so much. Malcolm X became one of my heroes, and it just was one of the first books that I remember reading as, from not, I'm not a kid anymore. Now I can read like an adult book, but I was just transfixed by it. I loved it.
You kind of mentioned a couple of things that you talk about. Give me one more that you would say is probably one of the biggest surprises in Black History Month fact for Canadians that people do. Like you said, jaws drop and they're going, really? I did not know that.
Well, I'll stick with hockey because that's been a thing that has come up again with Willie O'Ree, but I love talking about the Colored Hockey League, which is
Yes.
a hockey league in the Maritimes. So a lot of Nova Scotia. And what I find people don't realize is, first off, the slap shot was created by a Black Canadian and came from that. And then the league started 22 years before the NHL, which just kind of blows your mind because hockey still has problems with racism.
Yeah.
Wayne Simmons, back in October at a preseason game in London, Ontario, somebody threw a banana out on the ice. And it's funny, even when I explain that to some kids, they're like, I don't get it. And it shows that we have come far and away because they don't realize kind of that significance. But I think it's really important for kids to know about that. And then the last thing I'll say with that is I love the names of the teams in the Colored Hockey League. Like there's the Mossbacks, because when slaves were traveling on the Underground Railroad, they would look for where the moss was because it grew on the north side of a tree, so that when they're trying to find their way in the night, they could just touch and feel that moss to make sure that they were going the right way. So I think that's really cool.
After we're done, I'm gonna go on Amazon to see if I can get any of those jerseys or something like that too.
Oh yeah.
So, but how do folks? Because I saw you got a long list. I mean, this is going past Black History Month. How do folks either get in touch with you to be able to, I don't know, maybe you can add in some more spots for your tour if that can happen, or B, can people even talk to you one on one if they want to?
For sure. You can find me at IMDO Gibson. So at IMDO Gibson on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, or imdogibson.com, and blackcanadian365.com or at blackcanadian365. And the cool thing is I'm doing a conference this year. So it's called Change the World, because I find that so many Black Canadians have changed the world by things that they've done. And so that conference is Tuesday, February 8th. And I'm excited because it's going to have about 50,000 people joining us for this event, coast to coast. We have schools from Nova Scotia. I talked to Manitoba and Alberta today and BC yesterday. So it's going to be great having all these schools join in. Maestro Fresh West is going to be joining us. And Toronto Raptor legend JYD Jerome Williams is also going to appear. So that's
Why
going to be
does
cool.
he just move here? Why does he just move here?
I know, right?
Like, he's an honorary Canadian. The couple more questions. Number one, when things get safer, you're gonna have your own damn jamboree because you need to do this.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, I mean, I'd love to do more like large scale events too with Black Canadians just in the building. Like that's kind of my dream.
No,
to
no, I'm
have
not talking about in the building. I'm
or-
talking jamboree. I'm talking
Oh
about
yeah,
out somewhere like in some massive field and you get like 50, 60, 70, 100,000 people out there and you're the
yeah,
MC, because I got a feeling this is where it's leading to.
yeah. This is where it's leading to, and one of my favorite places to go is Buxton, Ontario,
Yes.
and so that's between Chatham and Windsor, and you can go to Dresden, right by Chatham as well, to Uncle Tom's Cabin and learn about Josiah Henson. But every year they do an amazing event in the summertime, and they're closing in on their 100th anniversary. I believe it's next year, next summer. And it's cool because it's called a homecoming. So you have so many Black people and others that come from miles away. Some went to the States from Indiana or from Michigan, and they come back to this field out in Buxton, almost in the middle of nowhere, because it's farming land. And there's so many Black farmers that are there to this day. So I'm really hoping to bring it back to an area like that. And I've done many concerts at that homecoming over the years. So it'd be to bring it full circle to come back there too.
I think it would be amazing too. Look, like I said, a couple of more questions. Number one, did I just see you with another award for a world record recently?
That's right. I've got it right back here. So I got my second Guinness World Record.
Wow.
But one of the things I like to do is run. And I found it's been great during COVID. I think during this pandemic, you got to do anything you can to try to stay healthy
Mhm.
physically and mentally. And I set a Guinness World Record as part of the most 10Ks run in the world virtually. So I'm just trying to keep up with you. I noticed you been slimming down, toning up. So I'm trying to keep up with you, man. So I know that COVID can be a tough time for us
Yeah.
all, but I think it's really important to have some form of outlet creatively, but also physically.
Well, look, I won't lie. I did have a quick bag of chips before we talked. So,
Hey, all moderation, right?
all moderation. The other thing, too, new music. Are we looking at new music? I know you're a busy man, but new music, will that be happening with you?
New music as well. So I came out with the video Still Driven a couple
Yeah.
of months ago. And so the day after I set that record, I was in Nova Scotia. We shot that video and came out with it. And last Saturday, man, I went downtown Toronto early in the morning at about 7 o'clock in the morning to shoot a video for my new song called Change the World. So what I did was I was listening to John Legend, or I think it's Big Sean and John Legend. One man can change the world. And I decided to write to that song as kind of a freestylish song to it. And I started writing about Black women because at first I'm writing about looking at this $10 bill and thinking, what would my grandmother say, my Black grandmother, about seeing a Black woman on the $10 bill who she knew? You know, my grandmother lived in New Glasgow where it happened and everything. And then I started thinking how that happened, how there was Carrie Best who published the story. And she'd originally been dragged out of that theater too. And then how Viola Desmond's sister, Wanda, pushed forward that she is recognized. And then Mayanne Francis, the lieutenant governor of Nova Scotia. So I just said to myself, how about I just call it One Woman Can Change the World? Because there's been so many Black women in Canadian history and that have made such a contribution and a difference. So One Woman Can Change the World is going to be coming out February 1st as well.
Looking forward to that. Last thing I want to talk, and just take a couple of minutes. We do have to talk a bit about wrestling. NXT 2.0. What do you think about that, man? Because me personally, I'm not enjoying it very much. My personal feeling is there's too much, I don't know, scripting and staging and whatever. And what I enjoyed about the original Black and Gold was the fact, a lot of guys who would not have gotten their chances to be on the big stage had their chance, and they were amazing. Some of them ended up moving over to Raw and SmackDown and have done extremely well. But it just seems like, I don't know, this one's, to me, is just, I'm not feeling it. I'm still not feeling it. Even with the new additions, it's just, to me, there's too much staging, not enough wrestling, and not enough storyline to get me invested. What do you think?
I agree because I haven't been paying attention the last several months, but what I have been paying attention to is I like how there's a competitor.
Yes.
And
I was
just
going to get into that next.
because I just think it's so good for wrestling to have that competition and to kind of bring back kind of that old school sentimentality. But I think it just pushes WWE to be a better brand. But I really find, yeah, that it's we need more stars created, and I find too many wrestlers are leaving, so it's not keeping that same continuity.
Not just leaving, they're being fired. They're
Yeah,
being
exactly.
fired. They're
Yeah, I
being let
guess so.
go.
Yeah, yeah.
And
It's sad that they can't keep that going in a sense, like a big show that you kind of just want him to be there forever in a way. But if they can't move his story along creatively and kind of honor him, then it is good that there is a place for them to go that isn't like the D list, but they're really becoming a formidable competitor.
yeah, I was gonna go. So let's go over to AEW. I love what's going on there, and like you said, there's a lot of respect for the old school and things like that. Who are you liking a lot right now? Our Spanish God Sammy, I'm loving him, me personally. The interim TNT champion as we speak right now. Who are you loving right now in AEW?
I couldn't even tell you, man. I haven't watched anything. I
Really?
haven't I haven't been paying attention. Literally, I've been spending almost every day the last couple months. I have a routine of when I wake up, I read something, whether it's here or whether it's on my Kindle about Black history. I've been
Mhm.
locked in. And it's funny that you mentioned it now because I almost didn't realize it. You know, when you do a routine so much and then it's kind of ingrained in you that I haven't watched very many new movies. As I mentioned the other day, I just watched Harriet, so it's like when I'm watching something on Netflix, it's usually like a Black History thing or I'm watching a documentary. So I've been locked in. Um, I don't even know about Royal Rumble. Did Royal Rumble already happen, or is it happening
No,
this
it's
weekend?
coming. It's
Okay.
coming up. It's coming up, and thank you for letting me know about that because I was going to ask you who you feeling could be, the next standout on that. But we can jump over because, of course, you have heard a lot of the firings and letting go. What are your thoughts about that? That so many great talent are being, literally just thrown to the side. Some are asking for their release because they're not enjoying what's going on right now with the WWE.
Yeah, I just think it's a good thing. In the sense that wrestlers have always had this problem with WWE, and you wonder how long Vince is going to be able to keep it going.
Mhm.
Like him in a leadership role, Triple H, whatnot. But I love just seeing. Like, did CM Punk fight now? Is he in AEW? I know
He's
he was making.
AEW. He is
I know he
wrestling.
make his like appearance, but I didn't know if he was really fighting. But like,
Yeah.
that's an example. Is those grudges that wrestlers have, and I think rightfully so. Um, I love how that instead of just retiring and ducking out of things for forever, that they can go there.
Yeah, no, definitely. And there are other organizations. Impact is doing really well too. ROH ended up going out of business, but hopefully they're going to be coming back too. There are other spots for these wrestlers to be able to go to. It's just one of the things, and I want to get your opinion too. Do we need to go back to the circuit? When I say the circuit, back in the day when you had all those different spots and organizations, whether it be in Montreal, whether it be in Calgary, whether it be Mid Atlantic, whether it be in Texas, or whatever, wrestlers can go around, make money, and keep those spots going. Do we need to go back to that in some way?
I think so. I used to love wrestling like that, and I think it adds to your character. And I've before the pandemic, I was seeing more and more of those, even just small house shows, and
Yeah.
sometimes they'll bring in a legend, and they can barely move. Like I saw the Genius sleeping Lanny Poffo just a week before everything shut down, and got a chance to chill out with Virgil for a minute. So that was cool. But I think, yeah, like especially attaching some of those legends on, even if they can't like really wrestle that much in the ring, it's great to see them, and it's a great way to kind of pull in more eyes to it. But the other thing that I'll add is I think it's great to see more Black wrestlers getting their shine and having an actual shot at belts and titles, because when you look through historically, you just realize how Black wrestlers really weren't being elevated or treated fairly. And I mean, as a kid, my favorite was Junkyard Dog, but Junkyard Dog never was wearing the hardware. Like I don't believe he ever won the Intercontinental Championship,
No.
or and he never got to a heavyweight championship. But you realize how that happened for so long, and as a kid, I'd wonder why, but we didn't have kind of the social media to kind of air our grievances or to see that representation. So I think it's great now that you're seeing Black wrestlers on top.
Yeah, before people jump in there, because I know they're going to go, wait a minute. No, he didn't win any championships in the WWF
Right.
slash WWE. He was North American champion, Louisiana. He was the king down there, and he did win
Mm.
several championships and things like that, too. Me growing up for black wrestlers, Ernie the Cat Ladd will always be
Oh
number
wow.
one of my list with the thumb that he would tape up and
Mm.
right to the throat. Ladd was an amazing, amazing wrestler, and of course, football player back in his day too. As we wrap this up, who would you say though, as we talk about wrestling and Black History Month, your favorite Black Canadian wrestler?
I got to go with The Rock.
The Rock.
I'll default to that one. And I'd say it also because when I do my presentations, not just about Black history, but when I talk about social media, I talk about role models. And I I think for one of the things I always say is, and it's a famous quote from Jim Rome, you are the five people you surround yourself with.
That's true.
Choose wisely. And so nowadays, kids don't hang out with each other, especially the last few months because of COVID. They've been doing virtual, school's been pushed back. So I also say it's not just who your friends are, but who you're following online. Because if you're following some people that are talking negative or gossiping or memes and putting down other people, which some people have made a fortune off of. But I love watching The Rock on social media because it's like each post he does almost inspires me to get better. I woke up this morning, his Instagram picture was just him in the gym, but it was his caption about like late night working out. And he was talking about changing your vocabulary from I get to do this instead of I have to do this. And that's such a great message to send, whether it's about working out, because as we all know, some days you don't want to go to the gym, but instead of saying I have to, I get to. And, some days I might be tired and I might even say, I'm doing a show again. I have to do this show, but no, I get to do this show. I have another opportunity to perform. And that always centers me and realizes I got to bring my A game. So I got to give it up for The Rock for that positivity. And it's great seeing role models like that now, because he's not somebody who's attached to a negative thing, like you don't hear him in the news for doing something wrong. And also, I love his show. I got to catch up on more of those episodes because
Oh, great
I think it
show.
was really cool how he brought back like the Junkyard Dog in there or Iron Sheik. So I got to give it up for The Rock.
No, great show. I follow The Rock also, so I know exactly what you're talking about. And from
Mm.
time to time, I will watch his motivational videos that people will put together. That's like 15, 20, 25 minutes. So they're really good. I just want to throw in mine. All time Canadian black wrestler will be Sweet Daddy Siki.
Yeah,
Love Sweet Daddy. First black wrestler I saw with the bleach blonde hair.
yeah.
He had the cape, but the thing I loved most was he had the mirrors. Two mirrors that you would look this way, just to see how pretty he was. I mean, that was style. And if anybody ever gets a chance to read his book, they should, because the things that, people like him and Bobo Brazil and so many other black wrestlers went through, I mean, they went through some horrific times to do what they've done for wrestlers like The Rock to be able to do what they're doing today. And even his dad went through tough times too. But these guys are all groundbreakers. So, and you, my friend, are a groundbreaker too, because when you have awards like that, when you're passing around historic information like that, you are setting the ground plans for the future. And I love what you're doing. And congratulations on everything you're doing with the music, your teachings, and your inspiration, my friend.
Oh, thank you. And I got to read his book because, I didn't even know who he was up until a couple of years ago. And somebody on Facebook posted it and I did a little bit of research. And that's the thing with history is you're always learning. Like as big of a
Yes.
wrestling fan as I am, I didn't know about that. And especially in wrestling, it is a very racist, it has been a racist organization and practice. Because a lot of the storylines can be pushing the envelope, especially over
Yes.
the years. So I can only imagine. So I'm definitely going to go check that book out and read it.
Fantastic. One more time, where do we go website for you so we can find out
Yep.
where the tour is going, or people want to talk to you one on one, or anything else that's going on in the future, especially with the conference you said that's happening too? Where do we go?
I am Do Gibson. So at I am Do Gibson on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, or you can find out more about Black Canadian 365 at blackcanadian365.com or Black Canadian 365 on Instagram.
My brother, thank you so much.
Always.